I tried to sit alone, but the alien queen pulled me beside her and said, "Sit here, human." Ships of all shapes and sizes moved through docking bays, and creatures from hundreds of worlds mingled in the public areas. Ethan had seen many kinds of aliens before, but the energy here was different. The Galactic Summit was about to begin, and he could feel the tension in the air. Humans were rare in the council halls of this galaxy. For many species, humans were mysterious and unpredictable. Stories about human bravery and stubbornness had spread across star systems, but so had tales of reckless behavior and stubborn pride. Ethan had no desire to draw attention to himself today. He was not here as a diplomat or a warrior. He was an engineer called to the summit to give advice about repairing space habitats damaged during border conflicts. That was all. As he entered the grand hall, he noticed the long rows of seats, arranged in circles around a glowing platform at the center. Each species had its own area, and most of the seats were already filled with delegates in colorful uniforms, robes, or armor. Some of the aliens had many arms, some had scales, some glowed faintly with internal light. All of them were watching the others carefully, calculating who might be an ally and who might be a threat. Ethan felt a little out of place. His human uniform was simple, a gray jacket and pants, nothing to impress anyone. He moved quietly along the back of the hall, looking for an empty seat. He did not want to be near the center where eyes and weapons might focus on him. He found a chair at the far edge of the hall and sat down, hoping to remain unnoticed. He crossed his legs, folded his hands, and took a deep breath. For a few minutes, he enjoyed a rare moment of calm. The hum of the station mixed with soft chatter from the delegates. Ethan watched the various alien races talk to each other in languages he barely recognized. There were flashes of light, strange sounds, and even subtle telepathic messages that he could not understand. It was fascinating, but also intimidating. He reminded himself why he had chosen to sit alone. Being at the edge gave him space to think and observe without pressure. Suddenly, the doors at the far end of the hall opened, and a hush fell over the room. Ethan turned his head and saw her. Queen Lyra of the Velari entered with slow, graceful steps. Her skin was pale silver, her eyes deep violet, and her crown glowed faintly as if lit from within. She was taller than most humans, and her presence filled the hall like sunlight spilling into a dark room. All attention shifted to her. Ethan could feel the temperature in the hall drop slightly, as if the energy of all those eyes focusing on one figure created a physical weight. The delegates were frozen in place. Some whispered to each other in fear. Ethan noticed a few leaning back, ready to flee if she made a sudden move. He had read about Queen Lyra in galactic reports, but seeing her in person was different. There was power in her calmness, but also something else, something human stories rarely captured. He expected her to sit on her throne at the center of the hall, surrounded by guards, but she did something unexpected. She scanned the room slowly, her violet eyes moving across the delegates. Ethan did not flinch. He looked down at his hands, pretending to adjust his jacket. Then she stopped. Her gaze landed on him. Ethan froze. It was as if the queen had chosen him from hundreds of beings in the hall. She smiled faintly, and for the first time the room felt strangely quiet, not tense but anticipatory. Ethan felt a pull in his chest. He did not know why, but he could not look away. With deliberate steps, Lyra walked down the aisle toward him. Ethan tried to shrink back, thinking perhaps she would pass him by. But she stopped in front of his chair, looked down at him, and said in a soft, commanding voice, "Sit here, human." Ethan's heart raced. The hall went completely silent. He could hear only his own breathing. He wanted to say no, to remain in his isolated corner, to disappear into the crowd. But something in Queen Lyra's voice, calm yet certain, told him that refusing was not an option. He stood slowly and moved beside her. The moment his hand brushed the armrest near hers, a faint warmth seemed to spread across the hall, as if her presence alone had shifted the energy of the room. Some delegates gasped. A few muttered under their breaths. Ethan heard words like dangerous and reckless floating around. He ignored them. He was sitting beside the most powerful queen in the galaxy, and she had chosen him. For reasons he could not understand, he felt honored. Lyra turned her violet eyes toward him, studying him with curiosity. "You do not seem afraid," she said. Her voice was quiet, almost intimate, but every word carried weight. "Most humans would tremble or try to hide." Ethan swallowed, feeling the tension in his throat. He was not used to speaking to royalty, especially not royalty from a species he barely understood. Yet somehow her calm manner made him steady. "I do not believe fear helps anyone," he replied. "I prefer to observe first." Lyra tilted her head slightly, a gesture almost like a smile. "Interesting," she said. "Humans have a way of surviving in the galaxy despite being underestimated. Tell me, human, what is your name?" "Ethan Cole," he said simply. "No titles, no exaggerations." "Ethan Cole," Lyra repeated, testing the sound of it. "You are human, yet you carry yourself differently than most. I will be watching you today." Ethan felt a strange mix of pride and nervousness. He was being noticed by someone who could decide the fate of entire worlds, yet she was speaking to him as though he were merely another being in the hall. It was unlike anything he had ever experienced. As she gestured for him to sit, Ethan realized the other delegates were watching closely. Some were angry, some were curious, others looked frightened. He realized that, in a way, he had become a symbol, the human who dared to sit beside the Velari Queen. He had not intended it, but his choice, or rather the Queen's choice, made him a focus of attention. The Queen leaned back slightly in her seat and watched the other delegates. Ethan noticed how she handled the subtle glances, the whispered accusations, and the quiet calculations around her. She did not flinch, she did not threaten, she simply observed. He realized that power in the galaxy was not always about weapons or fleets. It was about calmness, awareness, and knowing exactly how to influence others without force. Ethan shifted slightly, trying to be as small as possible without seeming rude. He was aware that sitting here beside her was a statement. The story of a human beside the Velari Queen would spread quickly across the galaxy. He thought about what his family would say if they knew. His parents, simple engineers on Earth, had taught him that humans could achieve great things through patience and courage. He had never imagined that lesson would lead to this moment. Minutes passed, and more delegates arrived. Whispers grew louder. Ethan noticed some of them pointing subtly, exchanging quick glances. He realized that he was no longer just observing, he was being observed. Yet he did not feel afraid. Lyra's calm presence made him feel that even in the middle of this sea of tension, he was safe. The hall quieted once more as Lyra raised her hands slightly. Even without speaking loudly, the gesture commanded attention. Ethan could see the ripple effect as the murmurs died down. She had a way of moving the energy of the room without force. It fascinated him. After a while, Lyra spoke again, her voice carrying a tone of amusement mixed with curiosity. "Ethan Cole, you will find that humans are often underestimated in the galaxy. Yet some of you possess qualities that others fear or admire. We will see which category you fall into today." Ethan nodded, unsure what to say. He could feel the eyes of the entire hall on him, yet strangely he did not feel panic. He felt a spark of purpose. He realized that maybe his presence here was more than coincidence. Maybe he had a role to play he could not yet understand. As he sat there beside the Queen, he noticed small details, the way her crown reflected light, the way her fingers moved gently over the armrest, the quiet strength in her posture. He thought about the galaxy beyond the station, the conflicts, the alliances, the dangers, and realized that sitting beside her was both a privilege and a responsibility. He did not know what lay ahead. He did not know how humans would be judged today. But for the first time, Ethan Cole understood one thing clearly. Sometimes, sitting alone was never an option, and sometimes, being chosen was the first step toward changing the story of a species. And as the doors at the far end of the hall closed and the summit officially began, Ethan Cole remained in his seat beside Queen Lyra, ready to face whatever the galaxy would throw at him. He did not speak, he did not fidget, he simply sat and watched, and for now, that was enough. The hall was tense as the summit continued. Delegates from dozens of species watched every movement of Queen Lyra and Ethan Cole. Whispers spread like a current through the room, carrying curiosity, fear, and speculation. Ethan remained calm, sitting beside the Queen, unsure what would happen next. He knew that in moments like this, one wrong move could ruin the trust between species, or even spark conflict. Queen Lyra did not seem to care about the whispers. She leaned slightly toward Ethan and spoke quietly, just loud enough for him to hear. "You must understand," she said. "This hall is full of judgments. Most species fear humans not because of what you are, but because of what they think you might be." Ethan nodded slowly. "I understand. Fear is often based on stories, not truth," she smiled faintly. Correct, and sometimes truth is stronger than fear. Ethan thought about her words. He had grown up on Earth hearing stories about humans overcoming impossible odds, but those stories were always small compared to the galaxy he now faced. He realized that sitting beside the Queen was more than a privilege. It was a test. A test of patience, courage, and character. The first delegate to speak was from the Zurak, a species known for their strict hierarchy and sharp claws. He stood and began to speak in a loud, harsh voice, pointing at Ethan. "Queen Lyra," he said, "why have you allowed a human to sit at your side? This is disrespectful to the Council. Humans are unpredictable. They should not be allowed near power." The hall erupted in murmurs. Ethan could feel the tension rising. Some species nodded in agreement, while others whispered that the Zurak were overreacting. Ethan remained still. He did not want to answer yet. Queen Lyra simply raised her hand, and the murmurs faded. "Humans are not always predictable," Lyra said, her voice calm but firm. "But that does not make them dangerous. Sometimes humans see the world in ways others cannot. Sometimes their courage is stronger than fleets of ships. Ethan Cole is here because he understands repair, cooperation, and survival. He does not sit here to threaten anyone. He sits here to observe, learn, and help." The Zurak delegate scowled but did not speak again. Ethan felt a mixture of relief and anxiety. He had expected opposition, but not such direct confrontation. The Queen's words had protected him, yet he knew that observation was not enough. He would have to prove himself in time. As the discussion continued, Ethan noticed how Queen Lyra treated him differently from the other delegates. She did not ignore him. She did not treat him like a child. She spoke to him as if he were an equal, even when the Council seemed to dismiss him. Every once in a while, she would glance at him, as if checking that he understood the nuances of what was happening. Ethan realized that she trusted him to think for himself, not just follow orders. After some time, Lyra motioned to Ethan to speak. He felt a sudden awareness in the room. All eyes turned to him. He had not expected this. Speaking here meant risking judgment and even danger. Yet he remembered his training and the lessons from Earth. Calm words could matter more than weapons. He stood slowly. His hands were steady. He took a deep breath and spoke in a clear voice. "I am not here to threaten anyone," he said. "I am here to observe and to help where I can. Humans have repaired what others thought was broken. We have rebuilt what seemed lost. My presence here is not to gain power, but to offer knowledge. If you listen to me, perhaps we can repair damage across many worlds together." The room went silent. Ethan saw some delegates exchange surprised glances. Many species had expected either silence or arrogance, but not simple truth. Lyra's eyes softened slightly. She had expected courage, but not this calm honesty. One of the alien diplomats, a being with 3 eyes and scales that shimmered in green and gold, leaned forward. "You speak of repair," she said, "but can a human truly understand the needs of other species? Your history is short compared to the galaxy." Ethan nodded. "I may not have lived as long as some of you, but humans adapt. We learn, we observe. The galaxy is full of problems, and I believe any species can offer solutions. Humans are no different. We do not always know the answer, but we try, and when we fail, we try again." Queen Lyra smiled faintly. "Exactly," she said. "This is what I see in humans like Ethan Cole. They are not perfect, but they endure. They think, they act, and they try again. Courage is not in never failing. Courage is in standing up after failure." Ethan felt a quiet warmth at her words. He had never expected praise from a queen of the galaxy, yet her respect felt real, not given lightly. He realized that the moment beside her was not only about being noticed, it was about being understood. As the summit continued, Ethan observed the delegates closely. Some began to approach him cautiously. They asked small questions about his work on repairs, on his travels across human settlements, and on his experiences with other species. Ethan answered simply, without pride or exaggeration. The more he spoke, the more the other delegates listened. Slowly, humans were no longer seen as a distant, unpredictable species. They were being seen as helpers, thinkers, and allies. During a break, Ethan walked with Queen Lyra down one of the side corridors. It was quiet here, far from the eyes of the Council. He felt nervous, unsure if speaking freely would be safe. "You did well," Lyra said quietly. "Many humans would have spoken with arrogance or fear. You did neither. You showed patience, honesty, and courage. These qualities matter more than weapons or fleets in times like these." Ethan smiled faintly. "Thank you, Your Majesty. I did not know how I would be seen. I only tried to be honest and helpful." Lyra nodded. "Honesty is rare in this hall. Many speak to impress, to threaten, or to hide truths. You spoke simply. That is why I allowed you to sit beside me. I trust you." Ethan felt a sudden weight in his chest. Trust from the Queen of the Velari was no small thing. He realized that this moment could change the way humans were seen in the galaxy forever. They returned to the hall. The next session began with discussions of repair plans for space habitats damaged during recent conflicts. Ethan was able to offer practical solutions, suggesting ways to combine human technology with alien resources. Delegates who had doubted him began to take notes and ask for more details. Ethan noticed the subtle looks of approval from Queen Lyra. She did not interfere, but her presence beside him seemed to reassure others that listening to a human was acceptable. As the day went on, Ethan began to feel a sense of purpose he had not experienced before. The summit was not just about politics. It was about connection, understanding, and survival. Humans had always been underestimated, but sitting here beside Queen Lyra, Ethan realized that humans could shape events through calm action, observation, and courage. During a pause in the discussions, Ethan noticed a group of young alien delegates whispering among themselves. They were pointing at him and glancing nervously at the Queen. Ethan smiled faintly. He could feel their fear, but also curiosity. Maybe they were beginning to see humans differently, not as threats, but as beings who could think, act, and endure. Queen Lyra leaned slightly toward him and whispered, "Observe them. They fear what they do not understand. Your actions will teach them more than words ever could." Ethan nodded. He understood now that sitting beside her was not just about being noticed. It was about responsibility. His calm, honest behavior could influence the perception of his entire species. He could not fail, not for himself, but for the humans watching across the galaxy. Later, as the sun of the nearby star filtered through the station's transparent panels, Ethan felt a quiet pride. Humans were far from perfect, but they had something rare: persistence, honesty, and courage. And maybe, just maybe, sitting beside the Queen would show others that humans were more than stories or myths. They were beings capable of understanding, helping, and enduring. As the first day of the summit ended, Ethan sat quietly beside Queen Lyra, watching the delegates leave. He knew the real challenges were only beginning. Distrust, fear, and prejudice would not vanish overnight. But he also knew that one calm, honest human, sitting beside a queen, could start changing the galaxy's perception. One action, one word, one choice at a time. For Ethan Cole, sitting beside Queen Lyra was no longer a surprise. It was a responsibility, a lesson, and a chance to show that humans were capable of courage, honesty, and hope. And as he looked at her violet eyes, he knew that together, they could face whatever challenges the galaxy would send their way. The next day of the summit began with more tension than the previous one. Delegates from several star systems still whispered about Ethan Cole sitting beside Queen Lyra. Some were curious, some were afraid, and some were openly hostile. Ethan had expected resistance, but not this level of attention. He felt the weight of all those eyes, but he kept calm. The lessons of the previous day had taught him that calmness and honesty mattered more than fear or anger. Queen Lyra entered the hall first, her silver skin glowing faintly under the light of the station. She moved with the same quiet authority as always. As she walked to her seat, she glanced at Ethan and gave a slight nod. The small gesture reminded him that he was not alone. The Queen's confidence was steady, and it gave him courage. A group of delegates from the Zorath system stood up almost immediately. Their leader, a tall creature with armored plates and piercing yellow eyes, pointed at Ethan and spoke in a loud, sharp voice. "Your Majesty, why do you allow this human to sit here?" Humans are weak and unreliable. They cannot understand the complexities of galactic politics. Allowing him near power is dangerous. The hall murmured. Ethan could feel the judgment, the fear, and the doubt. Some species leaned back, ready to react if things turned hostile. Ethan stayed still. He had learned that reacting with fear or anger would make things worse. He looked at Queen Lyra. She raised her hand slightly, and the room fell silent. Her calm presence was enough to make even the most hostile delegates pause. "Humans are often underestimated," Lyra said, her voice calm but firm. "Ethan Cole is here not because he seeks power, but because he seeks understanding. Humans endure, observe, and act when needed." Today, you will see that courage and intelligence are not limited to any one species. The Zorath leader's eyes narrowed, but he did not speak further. Ethan could feel the tension in the air. He knew that words alone would not convince some delegates. He would have to show, not just speak. Lyra motioned for him to stand. Ethan took a deep breath and rose. All eyes turned to him. He felt a strange mix of fear and determination. Speaking here meant risking judgment, but also the chance to show that humans could act with honesty and courage. "I am not here to threaten anyone," Ethan began. "I am here to observe and help. Humans are not perfect, but we endure, we try, we learn. We repair what is broken and protect what is important. We do not act out of pride or anger. We act out of responsibility. If you judge us by fear, you will miss the truth of who we are." The hall was silent. Ethan's words were simple, but they carried weight. Some delegates exchanged looks of surprise. Others whispered that the humans spoke with more wisdom than expected. Queen Lyra's eyes softened, as if she had expected courage, but not this calm honesty. A young delegate from the Melari system stepped forward. She had long, flowing hair that shimmered with faint light. "You speak of endurance and responsibility," she said, "but humans have never ruled the galaxy. How can you prove that your species can handle the challenges we face?" Ethan nodded. He had expected this question. "Humans may not rule the galaxy, but we survive. We learn from our mistakes and adapt. We do not give up even when things seem impossible. This is why I am here, to offer knowledge, solutions, and cooperation. Humans do not seek control. We seek understanding and partnership." Queen Lyra leaned slightly toward him and whispered, "Your words are strong, human. Continue." Ethan took a deep breath and continued. "I have worked on repairing space habitats after conflicts. I have helped rebuild systems damaged by war. Humans are not perfect, but we do not abandon those in need. This is the quality I bring, not fear, not aggression, but persistence, honesty, and the will to repair what is broken. If the galaxy listens, we can work together, not against each other." The hall was quiet. The delegates were listening, some with suspicion, others with growing respect. Ethan realized that showing courage and calm honesty mattered more than trying to prove strength with weapons or fleets. His words, simple as they were, began to change the perception of humans in the room. Suddenly, a sharp noise echoed through the hall. A commotion broke out near one of the entrances. Ethan turned his head and saw several delegates arguing loudly. It seemed someone had challenged the Queen's choice of seating. The leader of the Zorath group stepped forward, pointing accusingly at Ethan. "This human does not belong here," he shouted. "He is a threat to our safety and the balance of power." "Your Majesty, you must remove him immediately." Queen Lyra's eyes narrowed slightly. She did not speak yet, but her posture became even more commanding. Ethan felt a chill in the air. He knew the situation could escalate quickly. He had to remain calm. He raised his hands slowly. "I am not here to threaten anyone," he said. "I will not take sides in disputes that are not mine. I only wish to help, to observe, and to offer solutions. If that is not welcome, I will step back. But I will not act out of fear or anger." The hall went silent. Even the Zorath leader seemed momentarily unsure. Queen Lyra finally spoke, her voice cutting through the tension like a blade. "Remove your fear and your assumptions," she said. "Humans are not threats unless you allow them to be. Ethan Cole sits here because he acts with responsibility and courage. If you cannot see that, you will learn it soon." The delegates murmured among themselves, and the hall slowly returned to order. Ethan felt a mixture of relief and exhaustion. He realized that speaking calmly, honestly, and with courage had saved the situation. He also understood that this was only the beginning. Trust would take time, and fear could return at any moment. After the session, Queen Lyra motioned for Ethan to follow her to a quieter chamber. The corridor was lined with soft lights and transparent panels showing the stars outside. Ethan could hear the distant hum of ships and the quiet chatter of delegates moving through the station. "You handled yourself well," Lyra said. "Many humans would have faltered under this pressure. Your calmness and honesty earned attention and respect. Remember, sometimes action is more important than words. Sometimes observation and patience matter more than strength." Ethan nodded, feeling a sense of pride and responsibility. "Thank you, Your Majesty. I did not know if I could speak effectively, but I wanted to be honest and useful." Lyra's violet eyes studied him carefully. "That is what sets humans apart. You do not need to dominate to influence. Your endurance and honesty are your strengths. Remember this, the galaxy underestimates humans at its own risk. As they returned to the main hall, Ethan noticed a subtle change in the atmosphere. Some delegates who had been hostile yesterday now looked at him with curiosity, even respect. A few whispered to each other, pointing at him and the Queen. Ethan realized that his calm courage, paired with Lyra's authority, had begun to shift opinions. The afternoon sessions focused on collaborative repair plans for several damaged space stations and habitats. Ethan worked alongside engineers and diplomats from multiple species, offering solutions that combined human techniques with alien technology. He explained how humans approached problem-solving, emphasizing observation, patience, and adaptation. Some delegates were skeptical at first, but as they saw the results of his proposals, their skepticism turned into approval. Ethan noticed that small nods and quiet acknowledgments from Queen Lyra encouraged them to listen. Her subtle support amplified his words, showing that humans could be trusted and respected. During a break, Ethan and Lyra walked again through the corridors. "You are changing perceptions faster than I expected," Lyra said. "Humans have a subtle power. It is not through fleets, weapons, or threats. It is through honesty, courage, and calm endurance. You are showing the galaxy that humans can stand beside the strongest and face the most challenging situations without fear." Ethan felt a quiet satisfaction. He had always thought of humans as ordinary, capable of courage in small ways. Now he saw that even small actions, done with honesty and calm, could influence worlds. He understood that sitting beside Queen Lyra was more than a personal honor. It was a responsibility to his species. As the final session of the day approached, Ethan noticed that more delegates sought his advice. Some asked practical questions about repairs. Others asked about human behavior, trying to understand the species that could endure, observe, and act without arrogance. Ethan answered simply, honestly, and without pride. Each answer slowly built trust. Queen Lyra watched him silently. She did not need to speak. Her presence alone showed others that his words mattered. Ethan realized that influence in the galaxy was often subtle, built on observation, honesty, and courage. Strength alone did not win respect. Action and integrity did. As the summit ended for the day, Ethan sat quietly beside Queen Lyra, feeling a mixture of fatigue and purpose. He had survived scrutiny, hostility, and fear, and he had remained calm and honest. He understood that this was only the beginning of his journey. The galaxy still held many challenges, many doubts, and many fears. But sitting beside the Queen, he realized that humans had the potential to change how they were seen, one calm action, one honest word, and one courageous choice at a time. And as the hall emptied, Ethan looked at Queen Lyra. "I understand now," he said softly. "Humans can do more than survive. We can teach others, help others, and stand beside others without fear." Lyra's violet eyes softened. "Yes, Ethan Cole, that is why you sit beside me. Not for power, not for status, but because you show what your species can be. Remember this. The galaxy will test you, but humans endure. That is your greatest strength." Ethan nodded. He knew the real tests were yet to come. But for now, he had shown that humans could face fear with calmness, respond to hostility with honesty, and influence the galaxy without raising a weapon. And as he looked out at the stars beyond the station, he felt that this was only the beginning of a journey that could change the fate of his species. Forever the following day started with an unusual calm in the Grand Hall. The delegates from the previous days still watched Ethan Cole closely, but there was a sense of curiosity replacing some of the hostility. Ethan had grown more comfortable sitting beside Queen Lyra. He understood now that his presence was not just about observation, but about action, trust, and influence. As the session began, Lyra spoke to the council with her usual authority. "We will discuss the remaining repair projects across the sectors affected by the border conflicts," she said. "Each species must cooperate to rebuild. Humans, for example, can provide knowledge and techniques that others may not understand." Ethan observed as delegates took notes and whispered among themselves. He noticed that some species who had openly opposed him were now more willing to listen. Curiosity was stronger than fear. He realized that calm, honest work and quiet courage could change opinions faster than force or arguments. But the peace did not last long. A sudden, sharp alarm rang through the hall. Red lights flashed, and a security announcement echoed over the station's intercom. "Intruders detected in the council chamber," All personnel take defensive positions. Ethan's heart raced. He quickly looked at Queen Lyra, who remained calm despite the alarm. Her violet eyes scanned the room with precision, assessing threats before anyone else could. She gestured for Ethan to stay close. Several armed figures appeared at one of the entrances. Their uniforms were unfamiliar, their faces hidden under helmets. It was an assassination attempt. Ethan froze for a moment, realizing the danger, but Lyra's calm presence reminded him to act without panic. Without hesitation, Ethan moved closer to her. He knew that standing still could be deadly. He positioned himself slightly in front of her, ready to react. The intruders raised their weapons, but Ethan stayed focused. He had no training as a soldier, but he trusted his instincts. One of the attackers lunged forward, aiming directly at Queen Lyra. Ethan grabbed a nearby console and pushed it between them, creating a small barrier. The attack deflected slightly, giving Lyra enough time to move to safety. Ethan's actions were quick and decisive, even if clumsy. He realized that protecting someone like her required courage, not technique. The hall erupted in chaos. Some delegates tried to flee, while others attempted to defend themselves. Ethan saw Noah Brooks, a human security officer, and Emma Lewis, a diplomat, moving quickly to help. Together, they coordinated a small defense, blocking the attackers and preventing them from reaching the queen. Lyra's violet eyes swept the room. She did not shout orders, but her calm authority guided everyone. Ethan noticed how the attackers hesitated, unsure how to proceed. The presence of the queen and the human beside her created an unexpected resistance. Courage and calmness, not weapons alone, were stopping them. Ethan reacted instinctively again. He grabbed a loose panel from the floor and swung it toward an attacker, knocking him backward. It was not a trained move, but it worked. The attackers were surprised by the unexpected resistance of a human who did not flee. Ethan realized that humans could be underestimated not because of weakness, but because of unpredictable determination. Lyra moved beside him, her hand lightly resting on his shoulder as they assessed the situation. "Keep calm," she said softly. "Observe, act, and endure. Your actions matter more than words now." Ethan nodded. He felt a strange clarity. Fear was still there, but it was controlled. He acted with focus, defending the queen and supporting the humans and aliens around him who were trying to stop the intruders. Together, they created a barrier that the attackers could not penetrate. After several tense moments, the attackers retreated. Security forces arrived from the outer corridors and quickly detained them. The hall was silent again, except for the heavy breathing of delegates and the soft hum of the station. Ethan stood beside Queen Lyra, exhausted but alert. He realized that the danger had revealed something important, not just about the attackers, but about humans themselves. Courage and calm action could change outcomes in ways strength alone could not. Queen Lyra turned to him, her violet eyes reflecting approval and something more. "You acted with courage and precision, Ethan Cole. Many humans would have panicked or frozen. Your calm endurance and quick thinking saved lives today. Remember this lesson. Fear does not control those who understand themselves and act with purpose." Ethan felt a quiet pride. He had faced danger in a way he never imagined. He had protected the queen without training, relying only on his instincts, his courage, and his calm mind. It was proof not only to the council, but also to himself, that humans could stand beside the most powerful beings in the galaxy and face threats without faltering. The rest of the day was devoted to analyzing the attack. The council wanted to understand who the intruders were, how they had gained access, and what weaknesses existed in station security. Ethan provided observations about the station's layout and the likely paths the attackers would have taken. His insights were practical, straightforward, and useful. Delegates began to nod in agreement, impressed by his attention to detail. Lyra allowed Ethan to speak openly during the discussion. He suggested defensive measures, combining human logic with alien technology. His proposals were simple but effective, emphasizing coordination, observation, and rapid response. Even delegates who had been hostile before now listened carefully. They realized that humans were not reckless or unpredictable. They were thoughtful, practical, and capable of courageous action. Later, Lyra and Ethan walked through the quieter corridors of the station. The stars outside shone brightly, a reminder of the vast galaxy they were responsible for. Ethan felt a mixture of fatigue and purpose. The danger had tested him, but it had also shown that humans could endure and influence outcomes without weapons or fleets. "You see now," Lyra said, "why humans are underestimated, not because you are weak, but because others cannot predict your persistence, courage, and calm. Today, your actions spoke louder than words. You have proven your worth, not through authority, but through integrity and endurance." Ethan nodded. He realized that the real strength of humans lay in qualities often overlooked by other species. Endurance, honesty, calm action, and courage were subtle powers. They could influence others, save lives, and change perceptions across the galaxy. As the day ended, Ethan returned to his seat beside Queen Lyra. The delegates were quiet, some still processing the events. Whispers of respect began to circulate. Humans were no longer just unpredictable observers. They were beings capable of courage, insight, and action when it mattered most. Ethan felt a strange sense of belonging. For the first time, he understood that humans could change the galaxy not through dominance or force, but through honesty, courage, and calm endurance. And sitting beside Queen Lyra, he realized that this was only the beginning. That night, as the station's lights dimmed and the delegates rested, Ethan sat quietly beside the Queen. "Today was difficult," he said softly, "but I feel that humans have shown something important." Lyra's violet eyes met his. "Yes, Ethan Cole. You have shown that humans can stand beside the strongest, endure the unexpected, and act with courage. The galaxy will notice and they will remember. But the test is not over. There will be more challenges, more doubt, more fear. And each time humans must endure and act with honesty and courage." Ethan nodded. He felt a quiet determination. The real challenges were still ahead, but he was ready. He had proven at least to some that humans could be brave, calm, and wise. He had protected Queen Lyra, influenced the Council, and shown that humans were more than the myths and stories that other species believed. As he looked out at the stars beyond the station, he felt the weight of responsibility. Humanity was no longer just observers in the galaxy. They had a place, a role, and a voice. And sitting beside Queen Lyra, Ethan Cole understood that even one human, acting with courage and honesty, could change the course of events in the galaxy. And as the station settled into quiet, Ethan prepared himself. He knew tomorrow would bring new challenges, new tests of courage and honesty, and perhaps new dangers. But for now, he had proven that humans could endure, act, and stand beside the most powerful beings without fear. The galaxy had taken notice, and Ethan Cole would never forget the lesson. Calmness, honesty, and courage could be more powerful than weapons, more influential than authority, and more respected than fleets. And as he sat quietly beside Queen Lyra, he knew that together they could face whatever came next the next morning. The Grand Hall was quieter than usual. The assassination attempt from the previous day had left delegates tense and cautious. Ethan Cole sat beside Queen Lyra, his posture calm but alert. The events of yesterday had proven that humans could act with courage and endurance, but he knew that trust was built slowly. Many delegates still had doubts, and some still whispered about the human who had protected the Queen. Queen Lyra began the session without any announcement. Her presence alone commanded attention. "We continue with the discussion of collaboration," she said, her voice clear and firm. "We will build, repair, and strengthen our sectors together. No species stands alone, and no one will be underestimated. Ethan Cole will assist in presenting human strategies for cooperation." Ethan stood slowly. He felt the weight of all eyes on him. He was no longer just beside the Queen as an observer. He had become a symbol of humanity, a representative of endurance, honesty, and calm courage. He felt nervous, but the lessons of the past days had given him confidence. He would speak with clarity and honesty. "Humans have always adapted to challenges," Ethan began. "We learn from mistakes, observe carefully, and act when needed. Cooperation is more important than power. If we work together, we can repair damage faster, protect lives, and prevent future conflicts. Humans do not seek control or dominance. We seek understanding and partnership." Some delegates shifted in their seats. A few whispered to each other. Ethan saw that the words were sinking in. He noticed the subtle nods from Queen Lyra, giving him quiet support without interrupting. He realized that his calm presence and honesty were slowly reshaping perceptions. Humans were being seen not as unpredictable threats, but as problem solvers and allies. A delegate from the Zorath system raised his hand. Ethan had expected this. You speak of cooperation, but humans have no fleets, no armies, and little influence. Why should we trust your judgment in serious matters? Ethan nodded respectfully. I understand your doubt. Humans may not have the largest fleets or the strongest weapons, but we have endurance, honesty, and courage. We act when it matters most without arrogance. We can observe, solve problems, and help others survive. Strength is not only measured by weapons or fleets, it is measured by the ability to endure, understand, and act with purpose. Queen Lyra's eyes softened slightly. Exactly. Courage and calm action often speak louder than fleets. Humans may be underestimated, but their endurance and honesty make them valuable allies. The delegates murmured, some looked thoughtful. A few exchanged quiet glances, reconsidering their judgments. Ethan realized that perception was changing, slowly but surely. He had not used weapons or threats. He had simply been honest, calm, and courageous, and that was enough to make some of the strongest species in the galaxy listen. After the session, Lyra guided Ethan to a private chamber overlooking the stars. The silence was peaceful, a contrast to the tension of the hall. Ethan looked out at the glittering galaxy, feeling a mixture of pride, responsibility, and curiosity. He had never imagined that sitting beside a queen could be so meaningful. Ethan, Lyra said softly, your actions have shown the Council that humans are more than myths. You acted with courage, calm, and honesty. These qualities are rare in the galaxy. You have made your species stronger in the eyes of others. Ethan felt a quiet warmth. Thank you, Your Majesty. I only tried to do what seemed right. I did not know it could change the way humans are seen. Lyra smiled faintly. That is the power of honesty and endurance. Small actions can have great impact. Humans will be remembered not because of their fleets, but because of their courage, patience, and honesty. The next sessions focused on long-term cooperation projects. Ethan was involved in planning joint repair teams, sharing human strategies for rebuilding damaged habitats, and training delegates from different species in human problem-solving methods. His practical advice, combined with calm confidence, began to gain respect from many delegates. Even the Zorath leader who had opposed him most openly approached Ethan with questions. Your strategies are simple yet effective, he said cautiously. Humans think differently than we expected. Perhaps there is value in your approach, Ethan nodded. I believe every species has strengths. Humans adapt, endure, and observe. We do not dominate by force. We assist, learn, and cooperate. Together we can do more than any one species alone. Queen Lyra watched quietly, pleased. She did not need to intervene. Ethan's calm honesty and simple wisdom were enough to influence others. She realized that humans had a unique strength, endurance, observation, and quiet courage that many species overlooked. As the summit drew to a close, the Council recognized the importance of including humans in decision-making and cooperation efforts. Delegates who had been hostile or skeptical now approached Ethan, asking for advice, guidance, and collaboration. He realized that humans were no longer seen as outsiders or unpredictable observers. They were respected partners. After the final council session, Ethan returned to sit beside Queen Lyra. The hall was mostly empty now, but the significance of the past days lingered. He felt the weight of responsibility, knowing that the actions of one human could shape perceptions of an entire species. Lyra turned to him. Ethan Cole, you have shown the galaxy what humans can be, calm, honest, and courageous. These qualities are rare and they matter. You have not only helped protect lives, but you have also begun to change how your species is seen. Remember this. Your actions carry weight not because of weapons or authority, but because of integrity and endurance. Ethan nodded. I understand, Your Majesty. I will do my best to honor that responsibility. The Queen smiled faintly. That is all anyone can ask. Later, Ethan walked through the quiet corridors of the station. He observed the other delegates talking, laughing softly, and sharing notes. Many were discussing human strategies, acknowledging their usefulness, and reconsidering old prejudices. Ethan realized that the galaxy was slowly changing. Humans were no longer underestimated. They were being respected for their endurance, honesty, and courage. He paused at a window overlooking the stars. He thought about the journey so far, how sitting beside Queen Lyra had begun as a simple act, but had grown into something much more important. It was not about privilege or power. It was about responsibility, honesty, and the ability to act with calm courage. Ethan knew that there would still be challenges. Distrust, fear, and old prejudices would not disappear overnight. But he also knew that one human, sitting calmly beside a queen, could make a difference. Small actions, honest words, and courageous choices could influence the galaxy in ways few expected. That evening, Ethan sat quietly beside Lyra in the observation chamber. The stars stretched endlessly before them, a reminder of the vast galaxy they were a part of. "Humans can do more than survive," he said softly. "We can teach, help, and stand beside others without fear. We can endure and act with honesty." Lyra's violet eyes met his. "Yes, Ethan Cole, that is why you sit beside me. Not for power, not for status, but because you show what your species can be. Calmness, honesty, and courage are rare strengths. You have shown that humans can influence the galaxy without weapons or threats. That is your legacy." Ethan felt a deep sense of purpose. He realized that the galaxy was changing slowly because of small actions, honest words, and courageous choices. Humans had a place now, not as outsiders, not as unpredictable myths, but as allies, problem solvers, and enduring beings. As the station lights dimmed for the night, Ethan reflected on everything that had happened. He had faced scrutiny, fear, and danger. He had acted with courage and honesty. He had protected the Queen, influenced the Council, and begun to change the way humans were seen. And he knew that this was only the beginning. Humanity now had a voice in the galaxy, a seat beside one of the most powerful queens, and a reputation for endurance, courage, and honesty. Ethan understood that one human could make a difference, not through weapons or power, but through integrity, calmness, and courage. As he closed his eyes for the night, sitting beside Queen Lyra, Ethan Cole felt a quiet confidence. The galaxy was vast and filled with challenges, but humans could endure. Humans could act with honesty. Humans could influence the strongest beings without raising a weapon. And together, humans and allies like Queen Lyra could face whatever the future held. And as the stars shimmered outside, Ethan knew this truth deeply. Calmness, honesty, and courage could change the galaxy. One action, one choice, one human at a time. Sitting beside the Queen, he understood that humanity's journey was just beginning, and that it would be remembered for generations as the species that stood beside others with courage, honesty, and quiet endurance. The summit was over, but the story of humans had only begun. And Ethan Cole, sitting quietly beside Queen Lyra, had become a symbol of what one human could achieve through courage, honesty, and calm strength.